This is a new and strange environment at first, suddenly finding yourself in orbit.
I'm Neville Andrew Mera, and this is Never Normal, a show about breaking free from the boring default plan and living life on your terms instead. They say that the best jobs are the ones you invent yourself. Well, my guest for this episode has done exactly that. Rova is a feminine embodiment coach. She helps successful women attract masculine, committed men. And Anna is no stranger to success herself. She has changed the lives of countless women through her coaching program, and her podcast, Claimed, is downloaded more than 10,000 times each month. Anna Rova, welcome to Never Normal.
Hello, what a great show. I'm never normal. Well, maybe sometimes. Thanks, Neville, for having
Oh,
me.
my pleasure. That makes two of us, by the way. I want to talk about your work as a feminine embodiment coach, which I think we're going to need to define for listeners. But before we even get to that, I want to talk about what it is that you were supposed to be doing. If you had listened to, your parents or school guidance counselors or any of those kind of influences we all have as young people, what was the default plan for you? Where would those people have expected you to be now in your life?
That's a really interesting question, Neville. And in my case, I think I have a little bit of a different story because I didn't have like the normal kind of childhood where it's like, well, you're supposed. What I knew, my dad, because I lost my mom when I was really young, my dad wanted us to be independent and successful, and have a proper. I mean, now that I'm saying that, I've never actually heard. I don't remember my dad telling me, "I want you to be successful. I want you to have a career. I want you to have a good life." He was basically like, "You're on your own. You need to go to school. You need to have a job. You need to be independent." That these are the messages that I got. I didn't have conversations with my dad about like sitting down and talking about the future or how he wants me to be. Like it was a very turbulent relationship, to say the least. um but I obviously was a product of societal influence and cultural influence where I grew up. It's like, yeah, it's like the usual: go to school, go to college, get a job. Like that's what I was heading, and I was supposed to have. If I was supposed to have a career in probably business and marketing and like online like because I majored in business administration and mass communication. So I was supposed to have a career, I think, in email marketing. And then things took the right turn for me, not the wrong turn, but the right turn. Yeah.
And you grew up in Moldova. Did you at a young age think like you would leave? I mean, you live in Australia now. Was that sort of always in the plan for you? Were you thinking as a young person that like I've got to get out of here, or was that like a surprising turn at some point?
No, no surprises there. I always knew. Well, my dad, like, I think I have to thank my dad for it. I don't like now. I think I have to thank my dad for a lot of things, although there are so many things that I don't want to thank him for because obviously this is all the shit that I had to deal with. But overall, I had to thank my dad for like, you have to get out. And all I wanted, I remember up until the point where I left, my only goal in life was to get out of the country where I grew up because it's and I still remember that sentiment, Neville. It's like living in Moldova for me was like a trap. I couldn't wait to get out of that place for personal reasons, but also for economic reasons and all kinds of different reasons. I can see now, but my path, my dad explicitly, you're supposed to. Here's what you're supposed to do. What he told us: you're supposed to leave and get an education somewhere else and live somewhere else. This is what he gave me and my sister, and so it happened. I was programmed to get out as soon as possible, and that's what I did. I did that before I finished high school. So I went to the US. I won a competition, which is like a very tough competition, and I went to the US as a high school exchange student. So I lived there for a year, studied in an American high school. Then I came back, finished high school, 2 year and one, and then I left to university, and that was basically
Where
it.
in the US did you go to high school for that year?
I went to Virginia. So I lived in Madison for about a year, and I went to a very small high school, in Redneck, Virginia, and that was the best. That was one of the best years of my life, honestly. And I think that year really transformed and shifted. It gave me like this was my ticket to everything. Yeah, that was amazing.
I'm curious. I don't know that we have time to go into all of it today, but I can only imagine coming from Moldova what your expectations of America were, and also what redneck Virginia, like. I'm sure in some ways it was like wow, and in other ways it was, well, also wow, but in like, I find that so many people who come to America at a young age are expecting like the whole country to look like Manhattan, basically, that it's just like skyscrapers from coast to coast, and it's a little different. And the
Yeah.
yellow school buses and the red plastic cups and all the like, as seen on
Yeah.
TV version of America, which some of it is definitely there.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it depends where you're coming from. But for me, so I went to the US in 2000, 2000, hang on, 2006 to 2007. So that was a long time ago, 14 years ago. And it depends, I think, where you're coming from, because I was with high school exchange students who were coming from like Germany or Italy or whatever. That's a very different experience. And for those high school exchange students, I think the program was a bit different, where their parents had to pay for this experience. I went completely free, because I won the competition, and coming from a post-Soviet republic, which is Moldova, one of the poorest countries in Europe, actually the poorest country in Europe, and still is, I believe. Um, so, and maybe Ukraine is there, but not sure. Anyways, for me, it was all wow. I have not seen, only I think in retrospect, when I came to the only in retrospect I was able to kind of look at some of the, let's call them more a bit of a negative parts, like any country would have, on the American culture, and the way people, eat, and how much they're individualized and things like that. But overall, that year for me, when I came, I remember it was like a wow experience in everything. I felt like I stepped into a movie, where it's like, oh my god, all the cars are clean, and the streets are clean, and like the houses are like literally like you see in the movies, even in rural Virginia. It's like tight, a nice little house with mowed grass. I haven't seen a lawnmower in my life. I didn't know what that was. I didn't see a laptop in my life, like 14 years ago in Moldova, people still get, I think, about $400 to $500, like the average salary there. So very different life. And so for me, with the American flag and everything, and the dogs in the yard, and we, I, yeah, I visited New York, and we went to Chicago and Washington, and like obviously those cities were amazing, but just the life, like I remember going into Walmart and seeing like, I don't know, 300 or like 25 different types of cereal or ice cream. And like, I lived with a host family, and they were like, all right, well, which one do you want? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, choose. And I'm like, what? Because like where I come from, still to this day, Neville, my dad, and where people how people live there, they have a list of 10 things to buy, and perhaps that's how it is in Spain still, and they go to the shop, and they buy those things, and they like write down. And I remember my stepmother used to give me the exact amount of money, and then when you come back, you got to give her back the exact amount of change. So it's not like you go and you're like, oh yeah, let's get some ice cream, and let's get this, and let's get,
Stop
no,
for a pizza
it's
at
very
Costco while you're
different.
there, and a hot dog on the way, and everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I like that's honestly that's the life that I live now in Australia, but back then, very different. So, I mean, I was just amazed. This was
Total
the best year of my life.
culture shock. I can only imagine. So, and especially then because you came back to Moldova after that, so you had this sort of like stark contrast one way and then back the other way. I can imagine that must have even like reinforced, what your dad had been telling you. Now that you had actually seen it for yourself, like what's outside. So, how did you get from? I mean, there's a big jump from there because you're 17. You go to the U.S. You have this experience. You come back after a year. now you're living in Australia and you're a feminine embodiment coach. So obviously a lot happened in between.
A lot.
Was there some point where you started studying relationships? Was there some like trigger in your own life that led to this? Or was this some subject that you'd been interested in like as a little girl? Were you thinking, oh yeah, I want to help women with
No.
relationships? So how did that enter your life?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I was, as I said, once I came back, big cultural shock. I wanted to go to American school. Like I knew I wanted to go back to the US for my education, but unfortunately, education in the US was and still is extremely expensive. So that wasn't in the cards for me. But what was in the cards for me is to go to an American school just in Europe. So I ended up going to Bulgaria, actually, to an American university there, which was one of the best decisions again of my life. And I ended up majoring in business administration journalism there. And then from there, like again, so going to the US was milestone. The next milestone was that university where I was exposed to liberal arts education, that also exposed me to different worldviews and people from different cultures, things like that. I got involved in extracurricular activities and like all of that. I loved it. And then I then another milestone was my first job out of college, which was me basically packing all my life in two suitcases and flying all the way to Malaysia,
Wow.
to work for a company called Mind Valley. You probably know Mind Valley.
Sure.
I don't know if you knew that I worked for them, but I did work for them for about 3.5 years. And so, here I was, finished college. I finished college in May, and then in July, I was already flying all the way, to Malaysia. And I remember being in the plane. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm by myself, just like flying out to Malaysia out of all places. Yeah, so I ended up living there for about 3 years. Back then, my boyfriend came and lived with me in Malaysia. I got, in Mind Valley, I ended up managing, being a launch manager for many different big projects. And so in that time, I became like a top marketing manager, online marketing, things like that. And I realized, well, during that time, I actually broke up with my boyfriend. And that's what propelled me to explore relationships. So my journey into what I'm doing now started with a breakup. It had nothing to do with what I was doing professionally. It was something like of an interest to me. I was also always entrepreneurial. I always knew that. I mean, I don't know if you call, I don't have that story like I was making lemonade since I was 14 or selling some stuff. Like I don't have that. But I always have, I'm ENTJ Myers Briggs.
Me
I
too.
I was always oh, really? Oh, we're in the 1%,
That's
Neville.
right.
You're gonna do great things. Good news. Yeah. So, I always had an outgoing personality. I always knew that there was something big inside of me to make happen and to do. But I think that, if I was raised in the US, I would have that belief inherent, but I did not have that belief inherently planted in me. It's somehow, I don't know, maybe the ENTJ share the same experience, but it was deep down inside of me. Nobody told me, Anna, you're going to do great things. In fact, everybody expected that I'm either going to end up in jail or whatever. I was always the rebel
Oh
kid.
wow.
So I didn't grow up with that positive reinforcement. I actually grew up with a lot of freaking negative reinforcement. And because I am who I am, my personality, I pushed back a lot and I didn't listen. So anyways, and that's good. So anyways, fast forward to Malaysia and the breakup, and I just started, so I always knew like I wanted to do something of my own, and I knew I was creative, but I didn't know anything. So it started on the side. Like, I was in Mind Valley. Mind Valley is a great is a great company. I don't know what's going on there now, but from what I'm seeing, it's still going and it's still one of the best places to work for. So it's super exciting. And it was a very entrepreneurial culture. It was a lot of great things. I loved it there. And everybody had their own thing. So I was like, oh, what's going to be my thing? And so when I broke up with my boyfriend, I jumped into this, like I had to date again and I had to discover myself again as a woman, because I was that woman who jumped from relationship into a relationship. So I was never single and I was never exposed to the dating world. Like, I think when I broke up, it was maybe about 10 years since I was a teenager
Wow.
when I was dating.
And now you're living in, was it Kuala Lumpur at the time?
Kuala Lumpur, yeah, I was living in Kuala Lumpur, and I was like, "All right, well, I guess I have to, start dating again and seeing how it is to be on my own, to be my own woman." And yeah, that led me to a whole rather different path where I started researching, getting really interested in that. I stumbled upon polarity, feminine masculine polarity, David Data's work, which is still the foundation of my work. And I started dating. So I started my own podcast back then, called Men Inside Show, where I decided to interview men about women and relationships. So I did that for about a year. And so yeah, it was kind of like a cool little project. Like I was super passionate, excited about it, like obsessed with this idea. I'm still obsessed with it 6 years down the line. And somewhere in that point in time, my time with Mind Valley came to an end. I ended up traveling, packed my suitcase, and I said, "Oh, I have all these skills that I can do online. So let me just go." And I was exposed to the digital nomad lifestyle back then, as you know.
Yep.
And I said, "All right, I'm done here. I'm just gonna move to Thailand and live on the beach on an
As
island."
one
And
does.
as one does, right? And so I did the whole, like, live by the beach, work at the pool, like it was, oh my god, the next, so when was it, from May when I left in 2015 up until 2016, so basically for about 9 months I was traveling on my own by myself, and I had a whole share of boyfriends, experiences, trial and error, figuring things out, full moon party in Copangan, like all of that. I did all of that. And then in January, I went to Colombia, and then I met String, my masculine man husband. And then the rest is history.
Yeah, well, for anyone listening who doesn't know, I think one important detail there is Mind Valley is coaching and a lot of self-improvement, right? And so you
Hmm.
you came with this tactical skill set of marketing, online marketing that you had studied and
Yeah.
had experience. And is that what you were doing at Mind Valley? That's what they hired you for?
So it's really, thank you for bringing this up, because this is actually an important piece in my journey. So when I went to work for Mind Valley, I went to work for customer support because I was right out of college. I was new, and I went actually there. What really helped me get in is because I was in ISEC. I don't know if you know, but this is a student organization, very popular around the world, that really builds those leadership skills. And Vishen, who is the CEO of Mind Valley, he was an ISECer as well. And so it's like a whole network that really helped me get in. So I ended up in customer support. And Neville, oh my God, I was 22. I was 22. I had no idea what meditation was before I got to Mind Valley. I had no idea what personal growth was. I came, like, my father is a communist. Now he turned into more of a socialist. But anyway, so it's like I went there, and I remember, I think it's like 2 weeks in, and Mind Valley, I'm not sure, maybe they've, because remember, I left Mind Valley in like 2015, obviously 5 years ago. A lot of things have changed. But back then, I was like replying to customers who were doing like quantum jumping and astral projection, working on their money blocks and beliefs and chakras and things like that. And I was in the customer support team, and I was supposed to answer all of that. And I was like, WTF,
Yeah,
what the hell is going on here?
yeah,
And then the whole team was like, let's meditate. And I remember, now I meditate myself regularly every day. But back then I was like, what the F is
yeah.
this? So it took, like, it was hilarious. It took me a while to kind of get into that. So it is a personal growth company. In fact, it's one of the biggest publishers in the personal growth world.
Yep.
And they have a coaching subdivision and everything. So and that was a big piece of my path, is to discover myself. And then I went into email marketing, online marketing, then launch manager, actually launching, big projects and a lot of these programs. And because I have to market them, I had to know them.
Hmm.
And this is how I got involved in the whole limiting beliefs. And I worked on a lot of different things, and I've tried the chakras. And so I was exposed to this whole world. And I actually, the last 6 months of my journey in Mind Valley was in that coaching division company. So two things here. Number one, it definitely exposed me to personal growth a lot. Like, through my journey, this was my jump start into this field that I actually do right now.
Hmm.
At the same time, so it's a positive and a negative thing there, because first and foremost, I learned how to market that, and I learned personal growth, and I saw how things are done. And I believe at that point in time, it just overexposed me to that stuff, to the marketing of it and to the personal growth, because there's a big difference between doing that for someone, like for example, doing online marketing or email marketing for a coach or a company, and then doing that for yourself. In fact, if you ask me, I mean, my funnels are okay now in my business, but they're not great. And I'm like, I was talking to another girl who worked with me in Nine Valley. I'm like, oh my God, I need Anna. I need the Anna who's doing, funnels and metrics and like, let's launch this project. I need that for me because I can't do that for myself as a coach because I'm my own content creator. So it did a lot of great things for me, but it also overexposed me to like the behind the scenes of the industry, a lot of different coaches and coaching. So when I finished with Mind Valley, if you tell me, Anna, you'll be a coach, I would be like, no freaking way. And I got burnt out in the industry. So I worked for another company who was doing similar things for about a year. And then I was so done. I was done with email marketing, online marketing, personal growth. I was done working on the laptop. It completely exhausted me. So that was another turning point where I just quit. I couldn't do it anymore. And I took 3 months off. And I said, I don't know what the hell am I going to do, but I'm going to figure it out. And I gave myself 3 months to just do nothing. And what I did is I wrote. So for everybody listening, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a moment in life where it's like, I don't know what to do next or what to do with my life. I just decided to pause and take a break and really step back and to give myself that space to figure things out. Because a lot of the times the solution or the decision is not right here in front of your eyes. A lot of the times you actually need to do something else completely. Step back and pause. That's what I actually advise a lot of women who are struggling with like dating and men. Well, let's step back and create the space to actually invite something new. And so in those 3 months, a lot of things happened. I started writing. I signed up for yoga teacher training in Bali. And in fact, that writing has planted the seeds for what I'm doing today because I was really exploring what to do next and everything. And me and Strang, we were discussing all of these different things.
And what were you writing about? And was it just private? Was it like a little journal that you kept, or were you publishing this? Was it a blog?
Yeah, it's all still on Medium. Like I called it 99 Days of Wonder, and I committed to writing every day. Because look, I'm this type of a person. Like back, maybe now, I don't know if I could do that, but I'm this type of a person that can't like completely take a break and do
Mm-hmm.
nothing. This actually is very appealing to me right now because I'm like, I have so much to do, and doing nothing for 3 days is like the best idea ever, or for 3 months. But back then, I couldn't do it. I said, right, today I'm quitting. Tomorrow, I'm going to start writing every
Yep.
day. And so, I detached from the outcome. I just gave myself the time and the space to just write about anything. And so I called them 99 Days of Wonder, and then I documented them day 1, day 2, day 3. So I don't think I actually published every day. Like first I did publish every day. And then after about a month, I'm like, all right, Anna, this is too ambitious even for you. So how about you like step back and write? So I started writing, like perfecting my writing. And I never wrote before. I didn't even know I was a writer. But guess what? People now tell me, Anna, you're such a great writer. And in fact, I'm planning to write a book. So I'm like, I didn't know this. It just, I just decided and
Where did the
happened.
idea come from then, if that wasn't something you'd been doing before? Did someone suggest this to you? Was this like a coaching exercise, or did you just, Forrest Gump, I just started running and then I ended up here?
I can't remember. Oh, you know where it started? Who was that? It was a girlfriend of mine that told me that she kind of planted this idea that said, I think it was something from like Gary Vee or something like that, which was like 5 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, where it's about do not teach, but document,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I can't remember exactly. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to document. So I treated this as an experience. As an experiment. So I think this is where the idea came from. This is an experiment. I have the time, the space. I also saved money. This was important, although I was with my masculine men who can completely take care of me. But I think in that, for me, it was like I was standing strong on my own 2 feet. I saved a bit of money. They could provide me with this opportunity. We weren't married yet. So yeah, I was kind of stable and secure. And I said, you know what? I deserve 3 months to experiment. So I literally treated this as an experiment. I was also very in love and, very free and in my own girlhood. So I said, yeah, let's see what happens. And I just started writing and publishing consistently. And I think in about 3, 4 months, I became a top writer in like love and relationships and personal growth on Medium.
Wow.
So it's all still on Medium. A lot of my biggest articles came from that. Yeah, it came from that experiment. And now what I do, I people like women find me on Google and then get with me on a discovery call and pay me money to actually, coach them through and help them attract the right men.
That's exactly where I want to go with this, but I want to kind of highlight that point that you didn't actually, it wasn't this deliberate thing where you're like, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do next, and here are the steps I've got to take to get there. It was more of like, okay, I know I want to do something different than what I'm doing now. I'm going to give myself some space, see what shows up. And you mentioned just in passing there that the articles that you wrote at that time, even though you weren't necessarily looking to build an audience, you didn't have a specific like niche in mind yet. This wasn't,
Mm.
creating content for your funnel or something. You were just writing for 99 days to see where it goes. And yet some of those pieces that you wrote then are still now some of the most popular things you've written.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's really interesting. Like, if you were to ask me, if you were to ask him, what would you do differently?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I were to do anything different, I mean, obviously, like, or I honestly think that I wouldn't change a thing because it got me to where I came today. So it's like this open mind and following my path, following my curiosity. Really, this is what it was about. But like, let's say I'm just imagining if I were here now, like I'm just because I've invested in myself in the recent year on a really, really high level in myself, in the business, in my path. Now I'm of the mentality if somebody can teach me how to do that faster and have a path for me that I can check in always with myself, is this the right fit for me? I would actually do that. And so it's really interesting because but like I really have to ponder on this because I don't know what is the right way to go for it. Because I do agree with you, Neville. There's so many people out there who can teach you
Mm-hmm.
things and can tell you things. But I can tell you now, looking back, so I'm at a very like things have really shifted for me. And that's why, like you probably noticed in the last 6 months,
Yeah.
where I did invest in myself and I joined a mastermind and a program and everything, and it like really skyrocketed. But for a lot of people who also did the same things as me, they did not skyrocket. And in fact, I mean, they're moving very slow. It's a very slow journey. But what happened for me is because when I invested in myself, I already was so committed to my passion. I've done like I've spoken to so many women. I was obsessed. I was writing. I was exploring my own journey. So really, I was curious and I stayed curious for so long that when I came to the place where, like, right, here's a program that's going to teach you how to actually build a scalable model and take it to the next level,
Yep.
like it hit like two puzzle pieces together. And that's why when you have a message and you know what the hell you're doing and you're so passionate and you really dedicated the time and the work, which I did in the last 3 years, really explore, well, more than 3 years, but professionally 3 years. Now it's like, right, let's go.
Yeah, as a marketer, I can totally understand. I mean, I think we all get so obsessed with all this, building funnels and .com
Hmm.
secrets and upsells and all these kind of like tactical marketing things. And,
Yeah.
and and I'm sure from experience, like they do work at least to a degree, but they've got to be built on top of something real. Like there has to be a foundation. And it sounds like by the time you invested heavily in coaching and everything, that you already had years of experience, sort of figuring out who you are, what you want, how you can help people, what those people need, and it was just sort of an accelerator rather than that was you finding yourself. You'd already done that work on your own.
Yeah, I mean that's the key here, and for everybody, like how we're gonna. I'm a big fan of Andrew Chaperone's, and I don't know if you know about the guy, but he's really talking about how you differentiate yourself is by really um, educating and by providing amazing value for the prospect, and really going so niche. It's this idea of having 1000 followers, that this is enough. And so for me, I hear from women all the time, Anna, what you do is different. And it really speaks to me. Like, women tell me, oh my God, did you bug my house? Like, this is me exactly. So I feel so privileged to be doing the work and to hear this feedback. And it's not based on, like some programs I took, tips, and everybody wants to shortcut it. Everybody wants to, today, we want to hack
Yep.
everything. And it's like the upsells and the funnels and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is just like the, how do you call that? This is just like a band-aid. This is something that, well, here's a model that you follow. Everybody's now about formulas and models. And I'm so tired of this shit. Like, honestly, today, it's all going to be about what actually, like, what differentiate, what about you is different, and people feel that resonance. And it's enough for you. Like, I have one product, one funnel, one message. I probably show up on Instagram like 2 times a week or 3 times a week. I do have a strong advertising funnel on Facebook, but that's just the techniques. And in feminine embodiment, you're probably going to ask me, what the hell is that about? One of the main principles is it's depth first, structure second, especially for women. And especially for women, I think I got so, like, I stepped out of this whole online marketing world because it was too much superficiality and stuff on the top that I had to do and build, and very little about the depth of it and actually the foundation of your message, of who you are. What the hell are you doing here? It requires training, it requires work, it requires an obsession and a continuous curiosity about the subject, that you like wake up. I'm still obsessed about masculine and feminine. I can talk about it all day. I work with women in that. And that's what's going to keep me going forward, because I've come to a place in my business, Neville, where it's like overwhelmingly amazing, successful, but I'm burning out because I'm working on those masculine engines of, like, discovery calls and sales and coaching and do this and do this and then do that. And the only thing that keeps me going is my work with my clients. And I actually told, and the message, right? Because I'm so passionate. It's the vision,
Hmm.
it's what you're obsessed about. And I told String the other day, my husband, we're partners in the business. I said, if I wouldn't be obsessed and if I didn't get joy from working with women and doing this work, I would be quitting it in a second. I would be done. And that's why I feel so many people get to that point where they're like building the structures and running for the success, to come and be burnt out. And if the message does not really hit home and resonate with you first personally, because it all starts with you, then you're burning out and you're like, I'm done here, goodbye, turning, closing this business, starting another one.
Yeah, well, especially for your business. I mean, you're at the core of it. It's people are. I mean, the funnel, all of it is pointing to you and the work that you do. So let's talk more about that. Why do women come to you?
So women come to me because I help single successful women attract committed masculine men. And these women come to me because whatever has helped them to achieve amazing success in their career and their businesses and their life is the opposite. Basically is not helping them with attracting the men that they want to be with. And the main question that the modern woman is asking herself today is like, where are the great men? And this is actually the tagline for my ad on Facebook. Where are all the good men? Big question
Yeah.
mark. Biggest question that women are asking themselves today. It's a huge pain. It's one of the biggest pains right now. And so if we look at, like, what I do is successful, there's so many different factors that go into that. One of them is I've hit the right time and the right place, the biggest pain that a modern woman is dealing with. So they come to me because they don't understand what they're doing wrong in their dating life and with their dynamics with men. They've tried everything and it doesn't work, and they're like, I'm the full package. I have an amazing life. I have an amazing career or business. Like, look at me. Some of these women are like nines, okay? Like, hot, and they still can't get it. And so that's why they come to me, and I help them change that dynamic. And the main problem is that, well, how can I summarize this? The main problem is that a lot of these successful driven women, not saying everyone, but a lot of them, which was my story, were living life and doing business and doing careers from a masculine place, from a structure place rather than depth place, where most women identify with their feminine essence, which basically means, and if you ask most women, like, how do you want to feel in the relationship? What do you find attractive in a man? They will all say, or most of them will say, I want to feel safe in the relationship. I want to trust my man. I want to surrender and let the F go of control, because control is killing me. And what I'm really attracted to is a man who can take charge, who can lead me, who can take me by the hand and claim me as his woman. That is extremely attractive to me as a woman. And that's attractive to 80%, if not more, of the women. But they can't get it because they are constantly in their masculine energy, which means making decisions all day, leading companies, taking charge, go, 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 push, push, push. And then when they come to me, they're like, oh shit, well, that's not helping me with men, because the men I attract are feminine men who are like, have no idea what's going on in their life. And they're like, oh yeah, wishy-washy, I'll let you lead. And she's like, that's not attractive. I don't want that. That's like a boy. Or they're actually attracting masculine men who are taking charge, but these men are either don't commit, are narcissists, or like the unhealthy masculine. So that's when they come to me, and I really help them embrace and embody their femininity, let go of control, surrender, and really drop from their heads into their body without toning down who they are. And really without losing that ambition and that drive. But for a lot of women, the ambition and the drive and the push, the desire to be independent no matter what, has overtaken, and that's a big problem today. And that's what's causing so much pain in relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I see it from the men's side. I can totally understand, and I've read a lot of what you put out, on social media, and it's interesting
Mm.
from my side because I've seen it as a man. I've done some of that work myself, and I think guys go through a similar but opposite problem, that we're sort of all, especially in the US, but I think everywhere now, conditioned with this kind of like modern relationship dynamics, and everybody's the same. And there's been so much messaging that's come to us throughout our lives that basically erases that polarity and just tells us,
Hmm.
it conflates being equal, which is obviously a good thing, with being the same, which is just not
Yeah.
true for most of us. Like you said, it may not be everybody, but there is a masculine and feminine essence. And I think we've been robbed of that in many ways, and just told kind of like, we're all just a sort of gray mush in the middle. And then, but the problem is that no one's happy, as you said. So do women already intuitively understand that when they come to you, or are they just sort of like, I'm not happy with my dating life, fix it?
No, they do. When they come to me, they do. They definitely resonate with the message. So when I get on a call, so my funnel works in a way where they either see an ad on Facebook, which is where most of the women how they find me, because obviously, like, this is how we use the Facebook platform. But then about 25 to 30% of women actually find me on Google, or listen to my
Hmm.
podcast, which is called Claimed. We renamed it into Claimed, or social media. So I do not push my message on anyone, and it might be perceived as controversial, but the women who come to me and are like, I want to know more, let's get on a call, or the women who end up working with me, let's say my clients, they're
Yeah.
totally on board. They watch my webinar. So from all of these places, either Facebook ads, social media, podcast, or Medium, because I still write on Medium, they all come to a webinar. So I have a signature training, which is called How to Attract Your Committed Masculine Men, where I explain the 3 different shifts that a modern woman needs to do in order to start attracting better men, different men. And at the end of that webinar, I tell them, well, you want to know more? You want to work with me? I can help you get there faster. Sign up for a discovery call. So, I mean, all women who are with me on the call and who are working with me obviously have come to their own realization. So in my marketing, I don't do any of the convincing. They search for it, they find it, or let's say they even see it on Facebook, like, oh my God, Neville, you should go to my ad and read the hater comments. I haven't read them. I've read like 1 or 2, and I'm like, nope, not dealing with that. Oh my God, the amount of hate and like dirt that women put on that is like unbelievable. But I don't deal with those women. Like, I'm not interested. Like, if it's not for you, please be my guest, unsubscribe, unfollow. I'm not here to convince you of anything. So, but the message really, really hits home for so many women because they're struggling, and finally they feel like, oh my God, here's a woman who has the solution to all of this. And it works. I mean, in my experience, it really works, and it works for so many women I work with.
Well, I think there's a lesson in that too for anyone who's listening who wants to build their own coaching business, or any sort of business that's centered on themselves. I think the fact that you've got this very specific funnel. You're not everything to everybody. You're basically saying, for women who are this and who have this trouble, I've got this program for you, and here's what I believe. And you don't really care that there are people out there who don't agree with that because they're just not your customers. Like, you're not wasting your time arguing with people in Facebook comments about why what you're doing works or whatever. It's just you put something out there and say, hey, if this resonates, here's how you can learn more, rather than trying to
Yeah.
convince the world.
Yeah, and that in itself was definitely a journey. Like, oh my God, still never like I posted that picture of me, the new one from the photo shoot. You've probably
Hmm.
seen, and most of the comments were like, "Congrats, Anna, congrats." And there was still one comment there that, like, I read that it wasn't too bad. It was just a woman I knew, like, oh my God, this woman, like when I started this work maybe 2 years ago, she was posting nasty comments, and I'm like, "It's been 2 years. You're still following me and reading my stuff, and, like, you put the energy to, like, put a nasty comment on my like, why?" Like, this woman definitely has something I trigger her.
Yeah.
Like, why would you follow somebody who triggers you? And, like anyways, so I read her stuff and, like, my heart started pounding 'cause I now there has been a point in time where I was attracting a lot of that shit,
Hmm.
and then when I internally put up those boundaries and I said, I'm not available for that. If you're not agreeing with my message, please unfollow me. Like, I literally tell women who are like, what is this shit? I'm like, feel free to unsubscribe. I'm not even going to deal with that. Like, I'm not available for it. But she still somehow like got through the cracks. And my heart started pound. Like, it still hurts. I think
Yeah.
no matter how successful, popular, I mean, Oprah probably doesn't even care about that, but I mean, she has haters as well. Everybody, like,
No
once you
question.
get to a level where you have a strong message, you're gonna have haters and you're gonna learn how to deal with it. How I deal with this is like mental, boundaries and just not reading that shit. And then just with her, oh my God, like I started like, I thought about this like half a day.
Wow.
One person, like, it's crazy. And then I did my own tools and practices. It still bothers me, but I'm like, whatever. So I just replied to her and I said, you don't have to agree with me. That's okay. I can live with that. You don't have to agree with me. I'm fine. So still hurts, but you got to do what you got to
I think you
do
got to
because
ignore
then
them.
that yeah, you ignore them. I mean, obviously there might be constructive feedback in there. I'm open. That's what I decided for myself, Neville. I'm open to a debate and a discussion. If a woman is there and saying, Anna, I don't agree with you, let's have a conversation. 100% on board. Call me to a podcast. We will debate this. But you don't call me names and you're respectful and you're really curious about my opinion, and not sitting there and being like, I thought, what did you say? I thought you tell women to succumb to their femininity and call them silly. I'm like, this is ridiculous. You obviously have no freaking idea what I'm doing. I don't have time for you. Goodbye. That's my philosophy.
So, women who are listening who want to work with you or who are just curious to learn more to get a sense of what it is that you're offering, your perspective on this, those three things that they could be doing, what's the best place to just get started?
Yeah, the best place is just sign up for my webinar, which is girlskill.com/webinar. And it's like a 70-minute training or a 60-minute training that encompasses my whole philosophy about all of this. So if anybody is interested, I would just send them there.
Perfect. I'll make sure we link to that in the show notes. I feel like there's so much more I want to talk to you about where we don't have time today. Maybe we can do a round two at some point because I think your journey is interesting. I'd love to talk more about your work as well. And
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. It was a pleasure, Neville.
thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.